Okay, so what we're going to do here is you're going to go ahead and make this layout. I'm voicing this over, so this is going to be a little bit different than what you're seeing on the screen. So what this is basically you could make this thing like 1,000 wide by 1,000 tall. When I type this up in Dreamweaver or Notepad, whichever one you want to use, we're using Notepad in class, we're actually not going to have a width or height property. What you're going to do is you're going to leave those blank, and the width and height property are going to be taken from B, C, or whichever one of those. Whatever widths you put in here is where the property is going to be taken from. So that's how that's going to work. And you'll notice if you look on the screen that all of them are going to have they're in pixels and they are not in widths. So this is slightly different, using pixels instead of percentages rather. If you use percentages, it's a little bit more confusing versus if you use absolute pixel values. It's much easier to use the pixel values. What margin auto does is that automatically centers the box. So if your margin auto B, what that's going to do is that's basically going to just figure out how wide A is. If A was 1,000 and B was, say, 800, it'll take the difference, which is 200, divide it by 2, which is 100, and automatically stick a left and right margin of 100 in there. So it centers it automatically. Something new we're doing here is we're putting boxes D and E inside of C, and you're putting boxes G and H inside of F. So that's a little bit different than what we've done in the past. That's pretty easy to do within the HTML code. It's really not an issue at all. All you have to do is you're basically going to treat C like a container, and you're going to go ahead and you're going to treat F rather as a container. So you're going to have three main containers: C, F, and A. A is going to contain everything, C is going to contain D and E, and F is going to contain G and H. That's it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we're going to start typing the code. So you're going to create a new folder, and the folder you want to create is just going to be called Complex CSS Layout. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and open that up. And obviously open up Notepad. And what you're going to do here is you're just going to basically make your HTML file. Remember that you have to save your CSS as something called mystyle.css. And what I did was I just had that from before, this code. So you could always just pause it and type that in. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put in the div class A. And A is going to contain everything. So go ahead and type that in. And then what you're going to do next is you're going to go ahead and put in div class B. Okay, and that's it. This should be ID as well. Whenever you're dealing with layouts, you're always going to be dealing with IDs and not classes, okay? And you're just basically going to take that and copy and paste it a whole bunch of times. So Control C on your keyboard and Control V on your keyboard will take care of that. Just go ahead and paste that in. And the reason why I'm moving C down here is to put in div tags for D and E. You're just going to leave yourself some room to type. So when you do put in div ID equals D and div ID equals E, you have some room. So what's going on here is div ID D is inside of C. And you're just going to copy and paste Control C, Control V. And div ID E is in C as well. So that's all that's happening. And now what you're going to do is basically you're going to copy and paste that. And if you look at F, box F on your left, it's exactly like C, pretty much. Some of the dimensions are a little bit different in the styles, but it's exactly the same. So you're just going to put F, G, and H instead of C, D, and E. What I'm putting here is a comment. Don't put that. That comment is actually a comment used in CSS, not in HTML. When I was typing this up for the video, I made a mistake, so don't put what I'm putting there. Just ignore that. You could ignore the next comment as well. If you wanted to put data or text within the div tags, you would put these comments or this text within the div ID equals D and div ID equals E. You'd put it within that. You wouldn't put it out there, because putting it out there actually messes up the layout, as you'll find out later. Which is okay. We'll go through a little problem solving, which happens when you make a complicated layout. Okay, so don't put any of these comments. Just leave that off for now. And that's it. That's basically the layout. And you're just going to go ahead and do I. And then the last thing you're going to do is you're going to close it off. And then you're going to close off A. So just go ahead and pause the video if you need to. And type in the code you see on the screen. And there you go. Again, don't write in that comment. It's not how you do an HTML comment. HTML comments are different. I'll show you that on a different video. I'll show you that during class. Okay, now everything's all set up. Now the only thing you need to do is make your CSS rules. So we're going to go ahead and create a new file to do that. Make sure you go to Save as All Files, and you're going to call this, I forget what I called it, complexlayout.html. Make sure you're in all files, of course. If you're not in all files, it won't work. And at the beginning of the video, I told you to create a folder called, I think it was complex layout. Just go ahead and make sure it's in that folder, which is right there, okay? Complex CSS layout. Save it there. Okay, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and you're going to make a all the CSS rules up for this. There's a few mistakes here, and I'm going to point them out to you as you're typing, just so you don't need to have an issue. So go ahead and open up Notepad. Again, pause the video if you haven't done all this. And you're just going to go ahead and you're going to start making all your rules. So the first rule we're going to make is the A rule. And what you're going to do for the A rule is you're going to leave the width and height off. And the only thing we're going to put is a margin auto. That won't actually do a whole lot on the page. If you wanted to center it, you'd have to put a left margin, maybe 10%, and that'll knock it over 10% on the page. The background color red, what that'll do is that'll obviously make the background color of the object red. Okay, it's pretty self-explanatory stuff right there. Okay. And we're going to start rule B. In rule B, what we're going to do is we're going to set the width, as you see there, to 950. And you're going to set the margin to auto. And what that'll do, like I explained before, is if the widest thing was 1,000 pixels and your width is 950, it'll subtract the two. 1,000, 950 minus 1,000, or rather other way, 1,000 minus 950, you have 50 left over, divided by 2 is 25. And the reason why we're putting a margin left here of 5 pixels is to knock off the square C from the edge of A. It's going to give it some room. And we're also going to do margin right of 5 pixels. Okay, make sure you go ahead and do the height as well. You're going to set the height to 100 pixels. It's going to be really narrow. And what I'm doing there is I'm copying, pasting, Control C, Control V, and you're just going to put margin top and margin bottom. And there you go. Go ahead and close that off. Oh, make sure you do the background color. Make this one yellow. Okay, so you basically did the width, the margin left, the margin right, the height, the margin top, margin bottom, background. The next thing you're going to have to tackle is C. If you look at C, make sure you look at what I wrote down in the image. C's width is 600 pixels. C's height is 500 pixels. If you look at D in the video, I make a mistake later, but I'll point that out when I get there. So go ahead and make your rule for C. you're just going to copy B, Control C, Control V, or right click copy, right click paste. Either one will suffice. And make sure you put in hashtag C to properly define your rule. And what I'm checking here is whether or not the rules were in uppercase or lowercase. If you look at the div ID equals A, B, C, you could tell that they're all lowercase. Right there I'm just testing the case. They're case sensitive, so you want to make sure you don't mess that up. So here what we're doing is we're going back and we're changing the cases. Meaning we're making, you know, uppercase B, lowercase b, so on and so forth. Okay? And C is 600 pixels. It's going to be a little bit less than B. It's going to be shorter than B, obviously, because you want B to go across the whole page. And you're making the height of C 500. Again, you should be looking at the image that's on the left of your screen in the video, and just make sure you're matching it up there. I had some numbers that were off. We'll go through that. And make sure you change the color from yellow to, you know, something like green. And if you look at D and E, they're similar. So we're just going to go ahead and do the rules for D. And in D, your width is going to be 590, which is correct. So 590 plus 5 is 600, which matches with C. Meaning D will be nicely centered in C. It'll be right in the middle, which is good. You could have done a margin auto as well. That would work. That's exactly what I did. Margin auto, and that'll do the math for you instead of us doing the math. Just basically you're letting the computer do the math for you, which is always nice. The height there is wrong. What you should put for the height on D is, I think it was 350. If you look at this right there, what I'm pointing out is that's shorthand for the margin. The first number is the top, the second number is the right, the third number, 75, is the bottom, and the 100 is the left. So it goes top, right, bottom, left. It goes in clockwise order. All right, so it just goes right around the box, and you don't have to put margin hyphen right, margin hyphen left, margin hyphen top, margin hyphen bottom. You just, that shorthand will cover it. All right, and that's how you do the margin auto. I was just double checking to see if we're doing it right. Okay. And that's a typing mistake there, so it's just margin colon auto. Again, if you look at the height should not be 500 right there on D. The height should be changed to 240. So make sure you change the height on D to 240. Okay, that's important. Change the height in D to 240 so it works properly. And change the margin, which I'll do. The margin should be margin colon auto. That's a typo as well. I'll fix that. It should be margin colon auto, not margin hyphen auto. So just change the hyphen to a colon. That's the one with the two dots. Okay, so that's why you're not getting that. And what you want to do in E is you want to change the height as well. You want to change the height in E to 240. If you look at the height in E and D right now, they're 500. You want to change the height in E to 240. Okay, I didn't do that in the video. Make sure you change the height in E to 240. Okay, and everything there looks pretty good. And again, it's margin colon auto, not margin hyphen auto. Okay, just going through F there. Okay, I did the height there. That'll work. I'm going to say this one more time. Just make sure you change D and E's heights, if you haven't done so, to 240. Okay, and also you'll notice that D and E both have a background color of black. Change them. I changed it in F, but I forgot to change it in D and E. Okay. So there you go. Make sure you change the background colors and change the heights to 240. All right. And the margin, it should be margin colon auto, not margin hyphen auto. So a couple typos there. All right. And G and H, they're basically the same as D and E, except what's going to happen is you have to, what do you call it? Change their heights a bit. And there's one thing I didn't do here is floats. I'm going to get to that later. So just go ahead and follow along with what's going on now. Okay, so you're going to change the height in G and H. Yep. And if you look at the diagram, just follow what it says. The height's going to be 490. 490 plus 10 is 500. So margin bottom is 5, margin top is 5. When you add that together, you get 490 plus 10 is 500. Bam, you're perfect. That'll fit right inside of F. Okay. And on F and actually on G, which I'm going to change that to, you want to change the background color there as well. Okay. And this third F is actually going to be H. It's the same as the prior one. So just go ahead and type that stuff in. You don't need a margin left, which you don't have. And again, in G and H, make sure you change their background colors. They're both blue. Change them. Actually, F, G, and H are blue. Change their background colors. Make one green, one yellow. Just make sure you change those colors. Okay, and that's also you have to put float colon left rather on G and H, but we'll get to that later. Okay, so there you go. Just make sure everything works properly. It's lined up, which it is here, and just make sure you go ahead and change the background colors, which is going on here, so it's fine. Okay, and the only thing you need to do now is put in I. The only one mistake you really had here is you forgot the floats, and I'm just copying B, because B and I are almost the same. And those heights, like I mentioned earlier. And there you go. If you just follow the image and make sure you put the right pixel values, it'll work properly. Okay. So again, just going through all this, making sure you have your width, your margin left, your margin right, your height. And we have an ID for each one of the boxes, which is good. File, save as, go to all files, and make sure you call it mystyle.css, because that's what we called it in our HTML file. Okay. And when you run it, it's not going to work because I forgot to put in floats and I messed up the height. You have to float everything. Okay. Also, the text I put in, the comments weren't right, so I had to delete the comments. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to fix all these issues. There's 3 issues. There's the comments that were wrong. I forgot to put in the floats here, and I miscalculated the heights when I typed it in. So what I did was I'm going to pause this here and go ahead and fix it. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at everything and try to figure out what's going on. You have to put in those floats, float left. What float left does is it'll basically just takes everything and puts it on one line from left to right. And then what happens on float left is when you run out of room, it'll go to the next line. That's all that happens. So float left makes, it's like basically how you type and all the words go on the line until you run out of space and you hit a margin, and then the word automatically wraps down to the next line. That's what float left does. Float left enables the boxes to wrap. And if you look here, you notice you don't need float on all of them. You only need float on C, F, G, and H. B you don't need float, and I you don't need float because there's nothing to float it against. Okay, so that's it. That's all you have to do. So go ahead and put floats in G and H, and that'll fix that issue. And in I, what you want to do is you want to put clear both. If you look, you notice I is in its own column, right? It doesn't need to be floated. So what clear both does is it turns off the floating. Okay, so that'll go ahead and turn off the floating for you, which is nice, obviously. So it'll line up properly. Go ahead and save it. And it's still not going to work because the heights aren't done right. So this is better. This is better, but you have to change the colors and you have to change some heights. So those are and the text. So there's three more issues now. There's the text, the heights, and the colors. Well, the colors won't really matter too much, but go ahead and fix those. So I'm going to go ahead and look through these errors here. And I notice that my heights are off. So what we need to do is the height there has to be 240. I mentioned that before, but we could fix it now. It's not a big deal. So we're going to go ahead and put in a, nope, should be height of 240, not width. The width could actually stay the same. Okay, so you actually want to make that the height. And there you go. Because what was happening was in D and E, obviously their heights were large. They were both like 500. And C itself is only 500. So D and E didn't fit in C. You had run over, which you never want. There you go. So you just go ahead and fix that up. Let's go ahead and fix that height up. And that's it. And there's one more thing you want to do with the text. And you also obviously want to change the colors. So just going to go ahead and get rid of that. Everything else looks good here. Alright. And checking your margins. Everything's fine. So the only thing, again, if you haven't done so yet, go to the HTML file and get rid of those comments that aren't right. Those are comments. Those are proper comments for CSS, not HTML. They're done differently. Okay, so that's good. The only thing you have to do, again, like I said, the comments, change the colors. So we're going to take a couple more minutes and just fix up this page so it's perfect. And the margin auto, which I never fixed in the video. If you look, it says margin auto. That's not how you do margin auto. It's margin : auto. Not margin hyphen auto. So you definitely want to fix that so it works properly. Alright. And I also had a double margin bottom there, so get rid of that. That happened when I copied and pasted. Okay, go ahead and get rid of that. These errors are pretty much careless, and they could have been avoided if I worked a little bit more carefully while I was typing this. But it happens. When you're typing stuff occasionally, you don't copy and paste right, or you may put in something that you don't intend to put in. Not a huge deal. Alright, there you go. And you're well on your way to being able to create, your own web layout and have it look professional. Not quite 100% professional, but it's how a professional would start. There's other items that we're not adding in. And then after we do all this, we're going to go ahead and do a full page. Okay, I just basically knocked a couple pixels off there. Once I get rid of the text, actually, that'll help it. So when we go ahead and open this up, it's much better. That's perfect. The only thing you don't have between the blue and the white is you don't have that much of a you probably want to make a little bit more of a margin. 5 pixel margins are kind of small. Just so you know, for future reference, you probably want to keep like 15 or 10 pixel margins. So you want to get rid of those comments because you shouldn't be seeing them. Okay, go ahead and get rid of those comments. Save the file. So just take a minute and get rid of these comments. Yeah, the comment for HTML should look like that. I think it's hyphen hyphen exclamation point. Or it's exclamation point hyphen 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 exclamation point. You could Google that, or we could go over that in class. It's not crucial. So what I'm doing is I'm just basically putting text within the divs. Those areas within the divs are only where the area of text should be. Right? You shouldn't put anything within C because D and E are in C. That means your content for C goes inside of D and E. Same with F. Your content for F goes in G and H. All right. Your content for A obviously is in B, I, D, E, or G and H. This is just testing it, and there you go. It's perfect. That's it. The only thing you probably want to do is just decrease the width of the page a little, which I did on the top. You don't have to do that, but just experimenting and making sure it looks, it looks right. You could do this all with percentages as well. I chose to implement this with the pixel measurements just because it's a bit easier than working with percents. But you could always work with percents as well. I could do another video where we do everything with the percents. I'll see if I'll do that. I actually prefer the pixel method for a more complicated layout like this. And just go ahead and view it. And there you go. That's perfect. Right, there you go. You can even make that red a little bit shorter if you wanted to, but that's it. There you go. You'll notice when you do use percents, it's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. You get a little bit nicer dimensions. And go ahead and test it out one more time. And that's right, just about right. The green box, which would be F rather, is a little bit too long, but a little bit too wide. Not a big deal. And there you go. Hope you enjoyed the lecture, and you have a better idea of how to make a layout using CSS.